We are officially in spring, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm super excited that we are finally starting to get some warm weather on the East Coast. I'm based out of New York City, and it's been a really long winter, and I'm just about done with the cold weather, with the bulky jackets, with all of the layers. And as we step into this new season, I often find myself, and I think it's with any changing of the season, that I always think about what it means to step out of one season and step into another. I get into this really reflective state. I start to think about my own life and how I am transitioning along with the seasons and what that means for me. So for the past couple of weeks, I've been a little off. There's something happening within me. I've been really more introspective, really thinking about my work, about my purpose, making sure that the reason that I do the work that I do is still authentic and aligned with God's purpose for my life. Because I think that when I initially started doing a lot of this work and helping, women and working with women to rediscover their own purpose and their own place in life, it came out of a desire to do for other women what had been done for me. But as I continue to grow in my faith and in my relationship with God, I really want what I do to not be about me at all, but really to be more about what God has in store for me and what his vision for my life should be. And so I've been questioning that a little bit because I feel that a part of me is allowing myself to kind of get caught up in the glitz and glam or the recognition and accolades that comes with this work that I do. And I don't want it to be about that at all. I want my heart to always be aligned with God's will, meaning that I don't want to care about the recognition. I don't want to care about the accolades. I don't want to be elevated on a platform for everyone to see for my own personal gain or for the feeding of my ego. If I am to be elevated on a global international platform, I want it to be because God is putting me in a position to spread his message and to bring people closer to him in a way that maybe they would not have gotten closer to him before. And so I want to be that vessel. And I'm sharing this because I think that a lot of times what we tend to do is that we tend to compare ourselves and our work with what others who are in similar industries or doing similar work are doing. And it's so easy to get caught up in that when we're coming from a place of ego and we want the recognition and we want the accolades and we want people to praise us and acknowledge us. And I found myself dwelling in that space. And it was almost like a reality check because it's like, Nancy, well, is what you saying and what you're doing and your expectations really aligned with what you have said that you want? And I think because we're also in Lent season, I gave up meat, for Lent, as a way, as a sacrifice and a way for me to develop my relationship with God and to get closer to him and to show him that I am really committed to walking this path. And it's really forced me to look at myself with a really clear eye and a clear mind. And even with the work that I do with other women, I'm with my fourth coaching client of this year. And so many of us struggle with this comparison thing, and I coach my clients so much on not allowing ourselves to kind of fall into that, because when we do that, we disconnect with who God has created us to be, right? He didn't create us to be like anyone else. And because we are not created in that way, we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to anyone else, because what he gave someone else, he gave to them. And what he gave to us, he gave to us. And we need to step in to that. We need to build up those special skills and those talents and those things that God has only given us. And so as we transition into this new season, which is pretty much bringing us out of the cold, barren winter season into a more warm, and life-filled season, I want you to take some time to think about what has been missing from your life and what you can feed yourself in this new season. Because sometimes spring can also be a metaphor for forgiveness, and not just forgiveness of others, but really forgiveness for ourselves. What are some of the things that you are holding on to? What are some of the things that you are still blaming yourself for and have not allowed yourself to let go and release and get past it? I want you to think about how you can use this new season as an opportunity to forgive yourself, to step into this new season of life feeling brand new without carrying over any of the resentment from the past or from last season, and just really stepping into spring and into your future with a new sense of optimism. What would that look like for you if you decided right at this moment to live your best life, to let go of everything that has been traditionally tying you down, to let go of the negative energy, the negative thoughts, the blame, the idea that you're not enough, that you lack, that you are not deserving, that you are unworthy? What would happen if you decided to let that go and step into a season of rebuilding, and of rebuilding your mind and your spirit, and really that voice that is a reaffirming voice that reminds you of who you were truly created to be? The powerful, strong, capable, smart, independent, beautiful, creative being that God has created you to be, that you are equipped, that you lack nothing, that even though you may not know the direction to go in, that if you took that first step, you're trusting that God is going to guide you and lead you the rest of the way. What would your life look like if you took that leap of faith and believed in God and believed in yourself? What would that look like? How amazing could your life be if you just allowed yourself to step out of the old narrative that you've been telling yourself and recreate a new one? I just want to kind of leave you with that as we step into this week's episode of the Nancy Ruffin Show. This week, joining me, I have a woman who I respect and admire immensely. She has become a friend of mine. We have done a number of initiatives together because she's philanthropic and she's always giving back, and she inspires me to be more and to do more and to give more. And when I look at someone who is walking and living their purpose, Melody Centeno is it. She is the living, breathing representation of what it means to do work that you love, to do work that you're passionate about, and not lose yourself in yourself, but give of yourself to the greater good of humanity. And so I'm really excited for this episode. Just want to just end it with, make sure you have, a pad and paper to jot down some notes, because she is super wise. She shares so many gems in this interview about how to get past your circumstances, not allowing yourself to be a victim of the things that you have gone through, but instead how you take that and you turn it into a testimony of survival. And that's exactly what she is. Life gave her lemons, and she ended up making lemonade. And she not only did that for herself, but she is continuing to do that for so many other people. So without any further ado, here is my episode with Melody Joanne Centeno. Enjoy.
Are you tuned in? 'Cause I am. It's the Nancy Ruffin Show.
You are tuned in to the Nancy Ruffin Show, a digital global classroom where individuals across all ages, backgrounds, and career levels tune in for guidance and motivation to live life on their own terms. Hosted by award-winning author, transformation coach, and the self-proclaimed Latina Oprah, the Nancy Ruffin Show is where inspiring thought leaders, modern-day influencers, and social game changers come to discuss their own personal journeys and have real conversations about the journey to success. It's where the next generation of leaders come to tap into their potential, ignite their fire, and expand their self-awareness. So if you're ready to power up and blaze trails of positive change, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome back, guys. You are tuned in to the Nancy Ruffin Show, and this evening I'm excited because joining me, I have a woman who inspires me, motivates me, and I am lucky enough to also call her a friend. So please join me in welcoming the one and only Melody Joanne Centeno. Hey, Mel.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, honey. How are you?
Good. Very exciting time for us, so can't complain. It's Women's Month.
Yes, it is. It is Women's Month. And there's been so many great things happening this month for women all over. And before we kind of get into it, I just want to briefly introduce you to my audience. For those of you who may not be familiar with Melody, but you should be familiar with her if you've been following me at all. But she is a woman of many roles and many hats, and she just does such great work out in the community. But I think most importantly, first and foremost, she is a mother. And for women, I think that that is the greatest responsibility that we carry, because we are creating and developing and nurturing the next generation of leaders, whether they're our daughters, whether they're our sons. We're responsible for them. So she is a mom, she is an actress, she is a philanthropist, she is a foster care advocate. I mean, she does a lot. So Mel, what do you want to kind of get into first? Do you want to talk about the foster care work that you do with Foster Care Unplugged?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I mean, I do have a lot of roles, but let's also not forget that I am also a foster care alumni myself.
Yes.
I'm a former foster child, which is the reason for a lot of the things that I do in general. But definitely Foster Care Unplugged was birthed just as a way to kind of connect my personal experience in life with professional practice, and to really break the stigmas that are associated with being foster care children. I know growing up, it was a lot of stigmas that I had to deal with just being a part of the child welfare system in general. And that led to me either being afraid to expose the truth about my life, to hide behind lies even sometimes. I would say, they would say, "Who's that?" I'm like, "That's my cousin, that's my aunt, that's my sister," just because the ridicule that sometimes comes with exposing your foster care status and the child welfare lifestyle in general. And so, go ahead.
How do you, and I think that's important to shed some light on that, because oftentimes, we think of, foster care and the system, and we think of it in terms of just placing, the child in a home. But I don't think that we give enough thought to how that is physically, mentally, spiritually impacting this young person. So what was that like for you having to navigate between being in foster care and then also having to do the things that children are required to do? Like, you still have to go to school. You're still, making or maintaining friendships. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes, like you said, you might be getting ridiculed and bullied. How does a young person learn to navigate through that?
I think we figure it out as we go through the journey.
Right.
We're never really equipped with how exactly to navigate through it because each of our experiences are unique. I think that one thing that every foster care youth does share in common is the emotions of rejection and
Mm-hmm.
abandonment. So, I think for me, when I felt rejected or abandoned just by the circumstance, in general, I always yearn to have a sense of belonging, and I always yearn to be extremely loyal to the people around me. And so I think that what happens with human beings in general, whatever they lack in life, they become extreme in.
Yeah.
So, people um, who know me know that my personality is she's someone who's extremely loyal and she's extremely loving.
Yes, you absolutely are. And you're
Because we
really
become
nurturing.
extreme.
You almost
Um,
take on, and it's almost like a strange dichotomy because you're a small petite woman, but you have this huge presence about you. And it's like you take over any room that you walk into in a positive way. It's almost like when you enter the room, you light up the room with just your energy, with your attitude, that someone who did not know your experience would assume that that you had a pretty easy childhood. How have you been able to maintain those parts of yourself? Considering some of the things that you experienced as a child in the foster care system, and I know that you experienced, sexual abuse also as a child. And
right.
these are all, tough things for any person to have to deal with, let alone a child.
Right. I mean, it gives you a different outlook in life in general. You
Right.
start to value the things that are disassociated to things that are connected to trauma. And so breath, you value your breath, you value laughter, you value moments of being kind of isolated from the reality of what your life is sometimes like. And I think that there's something internal that happens to people who who experience trauma, like the way I have an outlook in life where it's things that we value because it's contrary to that we no longer have to deal with, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does.
So,
And
when you say you walk into go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, finish what you were saying.
No, I was going to say, when you say you walk into a room and you own it, it's kind of like that presence that people probably see is just me being able to be grateful to be in a room with people. Something as simple as that. You know what I'm saying? Or
Right.
me being grateful to have the opportunity to fellowship with other people. So long as my heart is guarded and the reason for me being there is positive.
Right.
And I think we learn to be the best advocates for ourselves because we live in this turmoil and fear of not ever wanting to be placed in compromising situations as adults, since we had to do it so much as children. And so that's probably the other presence that is exuding from us, is just the awareness of knowing that we have to put guard our heart at all times while still being loving people and finding the balance in doing that, if that makes sense.
That was the first segment of my interview with Melody Centeno. And when we come back in part 2, Melody is going to talk about her relationship today with her mom, losing her father to HIV, and how she's been able to tap into her creative passion and tie it all in together with all of the work she does. So sit tight. We will be right back. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. I had no idea where to start and I had nowhere to turn. I asked myself questions like, how do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen to, like iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts? I even wondered, how can I make money from my podcast? And the answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcasts. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. So what that means is that you can get paid to podcast right away. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it, then go to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. Again, that's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
You are now listening to the one and only Nancy Ruffin.
So back to what we were saying. So I was asking you about the relationship with your mom. How is it now that, that you're grown and you're no longer in the foster care system? Do you even have a relationship with her?
Right. So it's funny because my mom, she always fought for us when it came to the child welfare system. She was just also battling another battle that overtook her.
Right.
So we never looked at her as someone who abandoned us or left us alone specifically. Because
and I think
she
that's
attended.
important that's important to stress and to say, because I think that sometimes the stigma around foster care is that that the parent abandons the child. And it's great that you're sharing some of those instances when that isn't the case, where
Right. And
one
it's
of the
actually
things, and I know that you can attest, as a mom, we have our own things that we go through and our own struggles, and we have to figure out a way to navigate all that stuff but still being able to raise children. But sometimes those struggles are even beyond our control, and I think that's probably where you're kind of going now with your mom.
Right, most certainly. My mother was mourning the death of the love of her life. My father also, he died of AIDS during the big AIDS epidemic.
Right.
And it was during a time where there was a lot of taboos around having HIV. It was during the big drug warfare that was happening here in New York. And so it hit her by surprise to know that the love of her life had HIV through sharing needles with my uncle Cisco, and that he was told, you're positive and you're probably going to die any day now. And that's pretty much what happened.
Right.
So that was a huge shock for her. And then back then they didn't have the services that they have in place now when you're HIV positive. So they sent you home to die. And, imagine knowing every day, the love of my life is going to die any second now. And that happened very quickly with all these children now also in the home. So the trauma that she had to experience to try to, bounce back from that was very hard for her. And so we never really looked at it like, oh, our mom doesn't want us, because she came to every court appearance and still tried to fight back for us.
Right.
But, it was just very difficult for her mentally as well because of all the mandated services. And she was on heavy medication. When you're dealing with mental illness and you're trying to find balance, there's a process within itself. You have to make sure you have the right medication. You have to make sure the side effects that you have because of that medication doesn't affect you in a way where your day-to-day routine is now also affected. There was times my mother would not show up to our visits, and it wasn't because she did not want to come. it was because the medicine had made her so tired that she would oversleep.
Right.
That's a huge difference
Yeah.
than someone who does not want to see their children, for example. You know what I'm saying?
And I would imagine that
Mhm.
whatever she was dealing with emotionally with the loss of your dad was compounded even more by the fact that her children were also not being taken away. So it's, from her perspective, she's experiencing
Absolutely.
loss in so
And
many different
also,
forms.
absolutely. And also the fact that my mom also had to deal with that she too was now HIV positive
Right.
and did not know when she was going to go.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So
And
that's a whole lot. So, so I always had reverence for my mom. I love my mother to death. Um, by God's grace, my mother is actually still alive.
thank the
So
Lord.
yeah,
Amen.
so it wiped out my dad in less than a year. But for my mom, she has been alive now for um 31 years.
Wow.
you know.
God bless her.
So,
God
yeah,
bless
so
her.
she's a fighter, but her pattern, we're having bipolar manic depression. Um and her story is very unique as well. She was raped by a pastor at 12 years old, and to keep my mother quiet, they threw her in an insane asylum and deemed her crazy so that she could get shock treatment, so she
Oh
could
my
forget,
goodness.
because they did not want to expose the pastor of the church. So my mother was placed away. Um, I don't know if you know who Gerardo Rivera is, but
Well, yes, I grew up watching Geraldo Rivera.
right, but the
Yeah.
insane asylum that he exposed is the one where my mom lived.
Wow. Yeah, he did a
So,
lot of
so
investigative journalism back in the days.
right. So, my mother has been a victim throughout all of this from very young. And so,
But I think she's really a survivor, to think of all of the things that she has experienced throughout her life, and yet she's still here.
right.
And
I mean, well, I think for my mom, it's a little different because survivor by way of still being here, but mentally she's still not here, if that makes
okay. Yeah,
sense.
got it.
Because she deals with the torment of her self-guilt. She deals with the torment of her self-blame. She deals with the torment of just not ever being able to win those cases,
Right.
So every time my father's death anniversary comes up, or his birthday, it triggers her again. She'll go into the mania every time.
Right.
If my grandparents' death anniversary comes up, it triggers the depressive side, and so because she's never really been able to really work through all her own personal trauma that she also had to go through by the secondary choices that
Right.
the system made on her behalf that she never had control over.
You
And
know
so I
that.
love my mom for that. But on the flip side, I always tell people that terminal illness brings a family together,
Mm-hmm.
but mental illness pulls families apart.
This is so true. And I think, it's unfortunate too that we just don't have the resources within our communities to treat those, who are going through mental illness properly. In my own family, I've had family members, battle mental illness, and the treatment was always to kind of just drug them up to the point where they become zombies, but there's never really a treatment to kind of help them to learn how to cope or to heal or to deal. And one of my really close cousins, he was also a bipolar manic depressive, and he ended up committing suicide because he never got the help that he really needed. It was just in and out of, hospital psychiatric wards, but they never did anything. All they did was drug him up. And then, the drugs, kind of like what you alluded with your mom, they make them really sleepy and tired, and they're not even productive members of society. And so he had really bad side effects. And I think that that's one of the struggles that we deal with, dealing with people who suffer from mental illness. They just don't get the appropriate treatment. And so it's not only the patient and the person that is suffering and going through this, but it's also their family. And you're right, it does tear families apart.
Right. So to date, my mother and I are I love my mom. I have a lot of reverence for her, but there's parts of our relationships where it's mother-daughter, and there's parts of our relationships where it's more peer-to-peer, if that
Right.
makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And, my mother grew up, in that of psych wards to this day because of all her trauma. And so there's a lot of portions of my life where I would have to visit my mom at psych wards. So as an adult, she's now in some kind of mental health / halfway house homeless kind of like nursing home setting. And so sometimes it's very difficult for me to remain in contact with her as much as I want to, because being in settings like that is a culture within itself, right?
Right.
So sometimes it's very difficult for me to remain in contact with my mom, because the phone calls from her are more like, can I have money to buy a pack of cigarettes?
Right.
Can I have, it's like the hustle mentality thing.
Yes.
And it sometimes becomes overwhelming for me. So it's kind of like, I'll make sure that your basic needs are met. I'll come and pick you up, and we'll go dye your hair, and I'll get you a washing set, and I'll buy you like 10 outfits to hold you for the next month. And then I kind of just isolate again, because I have to be very careful with not being pulled into a culture of dysfunction that I also no longer want to subscribe to.
Right.
So it's as an adult, it's really finding that balance of trying to progress in the area of a mother-daughter relationship while then trying to break into generational curses of dysfunction, if that makes sense.
It absolutely
and now just
does.
Also, yeah. So when people say, how's your relationship like with your mom? I'm like, well, she's in a very never changing place of my heart. But mental illness comes with a culture within itself. And so I have to then act appropriately based on the world that I live in with my particular mom and what she specifically has to deal with and on her mental health journey, because everyone's journey in that area is different too. And like you said, I'm raising a daughter. So I have to protect my daughter to the best of my ability in terms of the lifestyle that I want to create for her. And so not just with my mom, but even with my siblings that may still carry on the residue of the foster care system and the residue of the dysfunction of our family, I sometimes have to be more protective of Savannah than sometimes maintaining the depths of the relationships that I can maintain through them as well.
Yeah, because your primary concern is that your daughter is good and that she's healthy and she's protected, and you want to give her that stability and that security.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that means you got to disassociate, or you can't invest in other relationships as you would like to, because your primary relationship is with your daughter.
Right. Absolutely. And so, and even with my siblings, I love my siblings. When I tell you I love them, I was the number one that was like, mental illness is not going to get the best of this family. We're going to be together. That's it.
I can see that too, knowing your personality.
Right. But again, even as individuals in a family system, and this is the truth about family, this is the ugly about family that people don't like to talk about. Unless relatives who are operating in a family system of dysfunction are willing to do the work individually as a collective, there's still going to be doors of opportunity for dysfunction that can affect everybody as a whole. And so that's the case with my siblings and myself. I love them. I will never speak ill will of them individually. or expose our family
Mm-hmm.
secrets, like how people
Absolutely.
say.
Yeah.
But I will be very truthful and honest. And sometimes, I'm just that sibling in my family that's considered like the black sheep because I'm like that. Like, I'm going to
Right.
be truthful and honest about our stuff, but I'm
Right.
not going to compromise exposing it.
Right.
So when people ask about my relationships with my siblings, I don't paint this grand picture, but I also try to be as truthful and as honest as possible when it comes to them without compromising who we are individually and as a collective, if that
Right.
makes sense.
It absolutely does. And I think it just speaks to who you are as a person. You're very protective of the people that you love. And I think that is probably what is the common thread in everything that you do, whether it's the work with Foster Care Unplugged, whether it's the philanthropy work that you do. Like, you invest your whole heart into these projects. And I really wanted to talk a little bit about the creative hat that you wear, because you do this so well. You're able to tie all the parts of you together where it's almost like really seamless. And I say that because you just recently executive produced the play Foster Care Unplugged, and you are an actress and you are a director, but you're also doing this work, and you call it performance-based therapy, right? Where you're working with these foster care children or children that were in foster care, and you allow them to kind of work through their things in a creative way. So talk to me a little bit about the play, because it was amazing and it was successful. You had sold out shows, and I know you guys are talking about doing a tour.
Yeah, so yeah, so so much
I knew there was a lot.
so much of it. Yeah, the Foster Care Unplugged, the stage play, it really is. It derived from me wanting to help the youth be okay with standing in the truth about who they are, and removing the judgment of self-condemnation, really, and healing through accepting what they can and cannot change. And the only way you can do that is really sitting in your stuff. And so we put this 12 weeks therapeutic, performance-based approach component together. Foster Care Unplugged did the therapeutic parts, but supporting and facilitating and talking about the realness of the emotions and the experiences we go through when dealing with the child welfare system. And Do Spending Productions brought in their amazing team, of writers and executive producers and directors who really took ownership for honing in on their talents of taking their stories and a lot of these that came out of these sessions and letting that to inspire them to come up with the script of the show. It's very rare that you see plays based on a true story that is also performed by the actors in the
Right.
play.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a attention grabber. We did hit the news for it, and we did sell out in less than a week. And one of the most amazing parts of that experience 8 weeks ago was that the first deputy commissioner was also present, and the first deputy commissioner of the entire ACS.
That's amazing.
And yeah, and he came and he laughed and he cried, as he said, speaking to the audience members and speaking to the cast. And he had profound words for them, and he turned to them and he said, I've never seen something written and so well and so balanced. And he said, if anyone has never apologized to you within the child welfare system that ever did not do right by you in any capacity, and you always wished you had that apology, I want to stand here before you and I want to apologize on their behalf, because you deserve to hear that sorry.
Yeah. I will tell you, I was in the audience that night, and I bawled. I was like, first of all, it was so unexpected, and you never really understand the magnitude of just hearing the words, I'm sorry. Like, there's just so much validation in those two words, because someone is accepting responsibility for the many times where whoever or the system has fallen short. And it was such a powerful moment. I know I was truly affected by it. I could imagine what the young actors and actresses felt at that moment. And some of them actually cried too. It was a really emotional night.
I think tears just hit the entire room. The feedback that I got from our cast members was that some of them never realized they wanted a sorry until they heard it.
Wow.
And I think that was the most profound part. To hear our cast, our foster care youth say, I never even realized I wanted that sorry until he said it.
Right.
It was a night of healing. It really was a night of healing. And our audience members were commissioners and foster parents and birth parents and court representatives and the basic public and the community. But I receive, and I feel like everyone in that audience received some form of healing that night, whether it was a different circumstance, but the emotion was the same. Maybe they were experiencing some form of rejection themselves and they received healing. Maybe they had a connection with the story, or maybe they felt like they needed to call somebody and say sorry to them, or maybe they accepted that sorry on behalf of a situation in their life. Like, it was a really transformative night, not just a play. And that's really what my divine purpose is here in life, is to educate the mind and stir the hearts and to activate the will of people to really just look at life differently, and from a place of love and from a place of compassion, because I love very deeply and my compassion runs deep. And I think that's why I have the fuel to keep going and sometimes be able to wear all these hats, is because I really want, if one person gets it,
and you really care. You really care. You put your whole heart, and I think that's also why people are so attracted to you, and you do so much philanthropy. I don't know how you do it. Like, I thought I did a lot, but you have me beat. Like, you do a lot. But people always want to help you, Mel, because you're out there giving your whole self to every single thing that you do, and you just don't come across people like you every day. Yet you truly are one of a kind. You're like one of God's special angels here on earth. You do so much for so many people. And I'm sure you hear it all the time, but on just behalf of everything that you do, I want to thank you, because you inspire me to be greater. You make me want to do more. And I think that, that we all have a responsibility, to do that in whatever way we can, with whatever talents we have. We should all strive to give more, and to do more and to be more and to just kind of spread the love that you spread so easily.
Thank you.
So I don't want to keep you any longer.
I get my heart from my grandmother, who was really like the walking Mother Teresa. So I really believe it's like in our bloodline, but I feel like we all have that in us. We were designed to communicate with people. We were never designed, when we were created by our Creator, to grow in isolation. We were only designed to grow in community. And so I think that everybody wants that sense of belonging, and everyone deserves that sense of belonging, whether it's in the child welfare system, or us as a collective, as women, or us in just finding our internal divine purpose. And I feel like if people have that objective in their mind with whatever they're doing in their life, then you're going to attract like-minded people, because you also inspire me as well. And I feel like, the magnet that you felt tugging at you to come to me is also reflective off of the magnet that you also possess, that has us as women wanting to connect with you. And so I value you and your life and this podcast and this moment to allow us to share our heart with other women who are probably listening now and saying, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. And to even give them a piece of, hey, go with the magnetic pull of the like-minded people and women around you. you know?
That's so important because, for those of you who don't know, Melody and I, we met because of the connection of another woman, Angie, who is an amazing photographer. She has a way too of attracting women like us, and she felt it necessary for the two of us to meet. And, she's the one that facilitated our meeting. And ever since we met, like, we have gravitated towards one another. And so for the women out there that are listening, just have open hearts, and really look to connect with the other women that are around you that have the same heart as you, because it's the only way that we're going to grow in community, like you said, Melody, together. And we're so much more alike than we are different. Women always, we've been conditioned to compete and all of this negative stuff. And it's time that we start to shift that and start to come together in the way that we've seen many women do now.
Right. Absolutely. But yes, so if you guys want to support us through Foster Care Unplugged, please just follow us. It's something as simple as staying in the know, because we are a social awareness platform. So, and we are trying to break stigmas. So if people can follow us, that's enough right there. Just so that you can see what's the next stigma we're out here trying to break.
And where can they connect with you at, Melody? On your Instagram and also your website?
Yeah, sure. Well, our Foster Care Unplugged page is Foster Care Unplugged. Foster Care _Unplugged is our social media to stay connected with what's going on with the foster care community. Personally, you can follow me at Melody, like music, MELODYJC. And our website is www.fostercareunplugged.org. And we have tons of things. May is National Foster Care Awareness Month. And so that's the month that we do the most work with making a lot of noise in terms of breaking stigmas. We have an NYPD versus foster care youth unity basketball game at St. Francis College coming up. We do have another private screening coming up of the play this month, April 23rd, but those are for the board members and for actually all the CEOs of foster care agencies in New York City that the first deputy commissioner is putting together for us right now. So that won't be open to the public, but the hope is to keep expanding the play. So we want people to come out and see that play. Please follow us to stay in contact when the next play is. We also have an amazing fashion show coming up in June where we're going to take 20 foster care youth and put them through group therapy to build their self-esteem and put them through boot camp training. And then they're actually going to hit the runway and show that transformational internal work on the physiological side. And so they're going to slay that runway. We have that coming up. And of course, Nancy, our usual book bag drive and turkey drive that you and I collaborate with.
Melody's working all year round. Every month she has a different initiative. So there's never any shortage of help. She needs all the help that she can get. So if you guys want to make some real differences in someone's life, connect with Melody, connect with Foster Care Unplugged. They are an amazing organization with their boots on the ground. They are out in the streets touching the people, doing the work. You don't often see, there's a lot of nonprofit organizations, these organizations that say that they're doing but don't do as much as they say. And Melody actually does more than what she even says. She does a lot of stuff we don't even see or hear about. So this is an organization you definitely want to support. I'm 100% behind it. Every time there's an opportunity for me to help and show up, I'm there. And I encourage you all to do the same. Mel, before I let you go, I want to do something fun. I'm going to give you a couple of choices. You tell me what you prefer.
Sure.
Okay. Vanilla or chocolate?
Oh, chocolate, depending on the time of the month.
Traditional books or audiobooks?
I love traditional books. I love to feel the paper.
Me too. Morris Chestnut or Taye Diggs? And you say you like chocolate.
I'm going to go with Morris on this one.
And this one I'm just throwing in there for fun. Obama or Trump?
Oh, that one is definitely going to be my boy Obama.
Okay, so, and then I want you to finish this sentence. I want to be remembered for.
I want to be remembered for. I want to be so much. I want to be remembered for. Oh my gosh. I want to be remembered for teaching the world what love and loyalty is all about.
Beautiful. So there you go, guys. Melody Joanne Centeno, thank you, darling, for being my guest, for taking the time to just be here and share all of your wisdom with my listeners. You are amazing. I adore you. I love you. And I just can't wait to see what you're going to continue to create, because your future is so bright. You have so many different things going on, and I just wish you continued success in all of them.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. And thank you for the listeners. And I hope to connect with all of you guys soon. Happy Women's Month. Women's Month is every day, but happy Women's Month. And God bless the men that support the women who birthed them.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Nancy Ruffin Show. This episode has been sponsored by Anchor. And if you'd like to sponsor the show, then just shoot me an email at info@nancyarroyoruffin.com. Make sure to subscribe, leave us a rating, and tell your friends why you love us. Until next time, mi gente, go out there and crush those goals.
Thank you for listening to The Nancy Ruffin Show.